In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your inner tie rod on your Mercedes-Benz C300. It's located behind your front wheel. Using a 17mm socket, we're going to remove our wheel. For this last one, you want to keep a hand on the wheel. And remove it. We're going to break free our jam nut. To do that, you're going to pull it down towards you if you're in front and hold this inner tie rod still. I'm going to use a 13mm on this side and a 21mm on the jam nut. Break it free, go a couple of turns, and now we're going to take off this nut. Using a 21mm socket, we're going to take our nut off our tie rod end. Once that's removed, we're going to give this a tap. So I'm going to put this back on. Just a couple of threads. And I'm going to give it a whack with a hammer, and hopefully it'll come out. If not, we'll have to use a puller or a separator. Nope, looks like it came out. If yours doesn't come out, you're going to want to separate it with an actual separator. This is an aluminum knuckle, so you don't want to bang here like you would with a steel one. Take that out. I usually mark my tie rod on the nut all the way through, and then I'm going to count the amount of turns that I go around. This will help with alignment purposes when you're putting it back together. So 1, 2, 3, 23, 24. Now I'm going to write 24 somewhere, and that's going to remind me how many turns I have to put the outer tie rod in when installing. Now we're going to remove the jam nut completely. I'm going to hold that still here with a 13mm wrench, and we're going to take our jam nut off. I'm using a 21mm wrench to take the jam nut off. If you let the inner tie rod move, you're going to change your alignment, so make sure you keep it still. Now we're going to remove the boot, squeeze your clamp, and pull that off. Make sure that's free. It should be. Use a flathead screwdriver, and we're going to separate out the spring clip on the other end. So I'm just going to insert it in and then twist it from side to side. We can replace that with a zip tie later if it doesn't go back together. Let's pull off this boot. Now we're going to remove our inner tie rod. We're using a tie rod tool. There's many out there. This is the one we're using. We're going to loosen up our inner tie rod now. And once it's popped loose, it usually just comes right off. You can take off your tool before doing so if you need to. Now you can spin this off. If you want, you can jack up the knuckle to take your inner tie rod off. I'm just going to go around my control arm. In order to get your tie rod in, you have to jack up your suspension just to get it past that control arm. It'll make your life easier when threading in the inner tie rod. Now you're going to need your tool to snug it up. To tighten it, you're going to give it a good tightening. You don't want to go too far, but you do want to give it a good amount of pressure. Now you can remove your tool. I'm going to aim this down slightly. Right about there. This inner tie rod has some grease in it already. If yours doesn't seem like there's enough, you can always add more. Now we're going to put our bellow on. Slide it over. Put some silicone paste on this end. That'll help it slide on and also give it some slip for when the person who does the alignment is adjusting the toe. Make sure you put your bellow right here where this bigger space is, right after the area is that you can grab on with the 13mm wrench. So here, you're going to skip, and then right between these two speed bumps, I'm going to call them, and that's where this part sits for the bellow. So you're going to make sure that that spins like that. And now we're going to stretch this bellow over the rack and zip tie it. Once you get that on, you got to tighten up your zip tie. Make sure this end's really tight. You can cut the excess off with some wire cutters. Gotta make sure there's enough silicone paste under there. Push it in if you need to, and just make sure that this moves, which mine does. And now let's put our clamp on. I'm gonna reuse my old clamp. You can use a zip tie if yours is broken. Just don't over tighten it. Let's thread on our jam nut. Let's lower the pole jack. Now let's put our outer tie rod on. I'm going to turn it 24 times, well, at least we are. And I'm going to start here. So 1, 2, 23, 24. Once you get the number of turns back in, you're going to put your jam nut down. You don't have to tighten it yet. It's better to have a little bit of play when you line it up with your knuckle. Let's take our nut off, our outer tie rod. Line it up with the knuckle. You may have to turn the stud a little bit, push it in out. Line it up and push it through. Now we're going to snug that up and torque it. torque it to 37 foot-pounds, and then you're going to go 1/8 of a turn. Put your cotter pin in. If your hole for the cotter pin is lower and the castle nut is higher, and you need to line up your hole, you never want to loosen it, you always want to tighten it to line up the hole. So we're just going to bend that around it. That should be good. And now we're going to torque our jam nut. So we're going to tighten down our jam nut. The torque spec is 48 foot-pounds. If you have a crow's foot that's big enough, you can do that. If you don't, you're just going to give it a good tightening. When you put your wheel back on, you want to make sure that your lug nuts, studs are going to line up. Once they're lined up, you're going to get one started. You are going to need your socket to do that. Now you can let go and do the rest. Now we're going to snug them up. We're going to do that in a star-like pattern using a 17mm socket. Make sure you do not over-tighten. We're going to torque our wheel to 96 foot-pounds. We're going to do that in a star-like pattern. Anytime you do any sort of suspension work, you're going to want to get an alignment, so go down to your local shop and get that done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.